This is Jim Bish with the Americans in Wartime Museum. Today's date is December 2nd, 2019, and I'm conducting an interview with Harry in Sun City West, Arizona. Harry, would you tell me your full name and where you were born?
Harry B. for Burton Ellis, and I was born in Everett, Washington.
In Everett, Washington. Okay. What year did you graduate from high school, or did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school in 39.
And so you were out of high school when Pearl Harbor occurred? You were out of high school when you heard about Pearl Harbor then? You'd already graduated?
No, I was still in the reserve, but I had not graduated till I was in the war at the time I graduated.
Okay.
They recognized those of us who were the right age to have been in the Navy.
So
in high school, so they gave me my high school diploma, sort of offhand.
I'm sure.
I was on active duty.
Yeah.
When I graduated.
Okay. What do you remember about Pearl Harbor? Do you remember hearing the news about Pearl Harbor? Do you remember hearing the news about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I was in the Navy at the time, in the Pacific, in the Atlantic at that time. And we got word Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And then later we went to Pearl on missions. I was an officer, but I considered myself enlisted.
Could you tell me a little bit about the reserves? How did you find your way into the Navy? Did you do training while you were in high school? How did you get into the Navy?
How did I get in? I enlisted. I went downtown Portland, Oregon, where I was raised, and asked them to let me in the Navy.
How come you wanted to join the Navy? Just because you were close to the ocean? There at Portland, you were used to the water?
I had always wanted to be in the Navy rather than the Army. It was either or.
Yeah.
And I wanted the Navy because we in high school felt like that was the place for us.
Yeah. So you were in the reserves starting out then, in the Navy reserves?
Yeah.
And how long were you in the Naval Reserves?
I enlisted in the Navy Reserve when I was still in high school. And about a year later, people got angry at it, and I went on active duty.
Did you go to active duty after Pearl Harbor or before Pearl Harbor?
After.
After. Can you tell me a little bit about your training? Did you go to Great Lakes to train?
What was that question?
Could you tell me a little bit about your training? What they did for basic training? And where did you go?
I just said I was not on active duty at Pearl Harbor. I was. In the reserve, we took our training however we could get it. I happened to be in high school and a trade school.
Mm-hmm.
I was training to be a machinist. And the Navy liked the idea
Uh-huh.
that they could get trained machinists. So I joined as an apprentice seaman. Shortly later, I became machinist mate.
Okay.
And I was a machinist mate through 1944. Then I became an ensign.
An ensign? Mm-hmm.
And I went up to commander in the Navy.
That's a good career.
Yeah.
Getting back to World War II after Pearl Harbor, did you go to any training station before you became active duty?
No. No training.
They just,
When I enlisted, I already knew everything that had to be done. So I didn't go to boot camp.
just because of your machinist, you knew machinist idea.
As I was a machinist, the Navy commissioned me.
Uh-huh.
And so I became an ex-machinist.
Mm-hmm.
I became a Navy officer.
Uh-huh. So they commissioned you out of your trade school as a machinist.
Yeah, I already was a machinist
Yeah.
by title as well as knowledge,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they commissioned me.
What ship did you get assigned to first?
First ship, we went as reserve members on different ships, several different ones. The one I was on during the war months was the Neville, APA APA 16.
APA 16, the Neville. What type of a ship was that?
It had been a merchant ship before the war. The Navy took it over,
Mm-hmm.
as they did many ships,
Yeah.
and outfitted it for war. And then they needed a crew, so they took us from the reserve
Mm-hmm.
and onto active duty.
So that was your first active duty ship, was the Neville.
Yeah.
Where did you travel from and to with it? Did you deliver supplies?
what?
Where did you travel mostly while you were in the Neville? Did you,
Where did I travel?
yeah,
Both the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Do you remember where you were headed? What ports you left from, and where you headed to most generally?
Let's see, the first foreign place, New Zealand.
Okay.
But that was after many other landfalls.
Yeah. I'm assuming you were bringing in supplies, armaments. I'm assuming you were bringing in a lot of different armaments and supplies.
No, we were an APA, assault transport, so we didn't do stores work.
Okay.
We did shoreside duty,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they wanted an old ship to do, we did.
What are some of the things they ask you to do with that ship?
Mostly invasions of foreign countries.
Uh-huh. What time? Where did you invade at? Do you remember some of your landings where you were?
Yeah, we were in Solomon Islands.
Okay, that was early. That was in like 42.
Yeah, that's when it was,
Uh-huh.
in 42. And then we went to other islands all the way up through the Pacific. And then when the war ended, we stayed on active duty because they still needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And my travels at that time were either in a destroyer or on submarines. Later on subs.
So were you on the Neville the entire World War II? Was it ever damaged?
We were never damaged.
And you followed through the Pacific Theater from the Solomons, Marianas, I'm assuming, and then,
Yeah, we went through 7 invasions.
do you know what those 7 were besides the Solomon Islands? Do you remember what the 7 invasions were?
Okinawa, to five. I have to look at my records.
Yeah. Were you at Iwo Jima?
Yeah,
Were you at the Marianas Islands, Saipan, places like that?
yeah.
And what specifically were you doing on board the Neville? What was your job
I
primarily?
was a machinist.
Kept parts going, made things.
Mate.
So you kept everything operating, made parts and things like that.
Did I what?
Did you make parts and keep the the boat going? What did you do as a machinist?
I worked on the engines.
You were primarily working on the engines.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were a diesel
I want to make sure that
ship
we take care of them.
with turbines.
Mm-hmm.
I also, before I went on active duty, before the war, I was on destroyers, mostly old World War One type tin cans, we called them.
Yeah.
And that's where I really learned how to handled steam engine work as a machinist mate.
Uh-huh.
And before the war, I was in the reserve, and also I was in high school,
Yeah.
so I had to get permit from the high school to go on active duty where I was going to go,
Yeah.
because the Navy was going to put me.
What did your parents say about you joining the Navy?
Oh, they were very proud of me.
Well, that's good.
My brother also joined the Navy
Uh-huh.
after me.
Yeah. So he was in World War II as well, your brother?
Yeah, he was a year and a half older than me and joined the Navy after I did.
Yeah. Was he a machinist as well, or did he have different
No.
jobs?
He was a radioman,
Mm-hmm.
a radio technician.
Yeah. So you kept the Neville going pretty all the way through the war without getting much damage. In the Pacific, the Neville didn't see hardly any damage all the way through the war.
No, it never got hit. Well, it did a couple of times, but no damage.
Yeah. No major damage. So where were you at when the war ended?
Where was I?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, when the war ended. Well, I'd finished my tour of duty I was living, my wife and I got married in 1946. I graduated from Berkeley in 47.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was when the war ended. Berkeley.
You were in college there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So were you still in the Navy when you were in college, or were you in the reserves? Did they put you back in the reserves after World War II?
No, I was discharged
Okay.
after 42, but I was not active in the reserve right after the war. I became a civilian,
Uh-huh.
and later when war started again, I went back on active duty.
Did they ask you to come back, or did you volunteer to come back?
I volunteered.
You volunteered. So they didn't bring you back in. You volunteered to go back a second time.
Yeah.
And that was the Korean War. When did you re-enter the Navy then? What date do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
I'm assuming it was probably around 1950 or 1951, somewhere in there.
51, I think.
And were you living in California yet at the time?
Yeah. Part of the time.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I traveled around a lot, and I don't remember exactly
Yeah.
where I was,
Yeah.
but the Navy took me back and gave me command of a submarine.
So you you were a submariner after that.
Yeah.
What was the name of the submarine that they gave you command of?
Sea Devil
The Sea Devil?
and the Tilefish.
And what was the other one?
Tilefish.
Tilefish.
And then the Rayton.
How do you spell that? The
Rayton.
Rayton?
Raton.
Yeah.
I was exec on the Rayton and skipper on the other two.
So you were skipper on the Sea Devil and the Tilefish. You were the skipper on those two. In a submarine, how large was your crew on a submarine?
50,
50?
55.
And what was being the skipper, what was your job? I'm sure you had a lot of things that you had to do as a skipper on the submarine.
Run the boat.
So
That's what we did.
yeah. Where are some of the places that your submarine went to, and what are some of the work that you did?
Well, let's see. My throat is
Dry?
giving up.
Do you need a glass of water?
I don't think that would have. I went mostly in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
We made one trip through the canal on the Sea Devil. We went from the east coast to the west coast through the canal.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to go back through the canal.
To get back home, to get back to the East Coast. Did you go to Korea on the Sea Devil? Did you make it that far, or were you mostly
Oh
close?
yeah, we were in and out of Korean waters.
You were.
It depends on where they wanted a submarine on patrol. That's where we would go.
Mm-hmm. So is that what mostly you did as a submarine? The submarine mostly did patrol work? Looked where the submarine mostly was in patrol? Looking where Korean ships and other ships were at?
Submarine.
Yeah.
The patrol, seagoing in the submarines was all patrol.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes active, sometimes ho-hum.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Were you in Korean waters quite a while, or were you in there for short periods of time?
We were there for quite a while, but not at one time.
Yeah.
We would go deploy for 6 months and back if we were based at Pearl. When we went back to Pearl for overhaul, we would finish the work and then go back to the war zone.
Uh-huh. Did you, were you in the Tilefish also in the war zone?
Was that what?
Were you, the Tilefish, was it also in Korea that you were in it?
Let's see. Yeah. I was on active duty for the years of the Korean War, but I was also on active duty before
Vietnam.
the war. Yeah. So all of my Navy duty was involved in the war, in one war or another.
Yeah. So you served as a machinist in World War II, and then you also were in a submarine during Korea and events leading up to Vietnam.
Yeah.
How long were you in the Sea Devil? How many years do you remember?
I believe 3.
Uh-huh. And then you were in the Tilefish for quite a while?
We sold the tile face to Venezuela. I was in it till the day we sold it.
Uh-huh. So that was probably between Korea and the Vietnam War then, is when we sold it to Venezuela?
Well, it's hard to draw a line
Yeah.
and say everything on this side is us and so, and this is, it's not that way,
Yeah.
as you probably know from your own experience,
Yeah.
that it just keeps going. And what you hope is you last long enough to remember.
Yeah. That's true. Is the Raton or Raton, how long were you on that ship?
The Raton,
Yeah.
that's a missile. Let's see. I don't remember.
Is that the last that you were on? Is the Raton?
Yeah.
And then you retired shortly after that?
Yeah, I stayed on active duty a couple of months after leaving the Raton.
So that was in the 1960s that you were.
Yeah.
What year did you retire from the Navy?
I knew you were going to ask that. And I can't remember.
Probably sometime between 1962 and 1965, somewhere in there.
Earlier.
Earlier? In the late 1950s?
51, I believe.
So how long were you in the Navy?
32 years.
32 years. So you might have retired in the 1970s.
71.
In 71, okay. That makes sense. So during the Vietnam War, where were you? Were you floating in the waters of
I was
Vietnam?
never in Vietnam. At that time, the Navy sent me to Panama, and I was still in Panama during the Vietnamese War.
Uh-huh. So you were in Panama quite a while.
Yeah, 3 years.
Uh-huh. When you were stateside, where did the Navy mostly send you in the States, or were you very much in the States?
Both close. Norfolk,
In Virginia?
I went to sub school in New London, Connecticut, and I went for other reasons, different places on the East Coast as well as the West Coast.
What bases were you on in the West Coast? Were you in San Diego?
Oh yeah, many times.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really stationed there. I lived there,
Yeah.
bought a house.
Is that where your ships came in to repair and to restock? Was in San Diego when you were out?
No, we were in San Diego after I was out of the Navy.
Okay. Between World War II and
Also-
Korea.
Also, before the war,
Uh-huh.
I went to San Diego the first time in 1944,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
I went on a submarine cruise. It's hard to sort all that out.
Oh yeah.
It's a constant flow.
Yeah. It's
of-
all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have any children?
Any trouble?
Did you have any children? Did you have any children?
Oh yeah.
Did any of them go into the military?
None. My son was a merchant sailor, but he didn't join the service.
He was commercial. Yeah.
And I had 3 daughters, none of whom were in the service.
Yeah. Did any of your did your dad, was he in the military? Was your father in the military?
Yeah, early on, before I knew him,
Yeah.
he was in the Army.
Was he in World War I?
No,
No, but
it was after one.
okay. Yeah. Well, is there anything you'd like to tell about your naval service, your service in the Navy? Anything else that you can remember that you'd like?
What was the question?
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about your service in the Navy? Did you have a good time? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I liked everything about the Navy. I had no problems, and I didn't give them any.
Mm-hmm.
I got arrested by shore patrol a couple of times. Not that it was I was wrong.
Yeah.
I just got in the wrong place at
The wrong time. Yeah.
What service were you in?
I wasn't.
Oh,
I was, I graduated from high school in 1973, right after the Vietnam War ended.
uh-huh.
So, well, thank you for doing an interview today, Harry. Thank you very much.
I
And
wish
thank you
I
for your
had
service.
been a little more clear,
You're good.
but
It was very good. Thank you.